Claire Donnelly was Ridgewood's pride, the daughter everyone trusted, admired, and envied, while her younger brother Michael lived quietly in her shadow, watching as she played the role of perfection. But behind Claire's flawless image lay a darkness no one dared imagine, and it was Michael, with a single horrifying recording, who would finally expose the truth that shattered their family and the entire town. Ridgewood was the kind of town where nothing truly shocking ever happened. People left their doors unlocked, neighbors greeted one another on evening walks, and families gathered on porches to share stories as the sun went down. In such a predictable place, it didn't take much for someone to become the center of admiration, and for Ridgewood, that person was Claire Donnelly. She seemed to embody everything the town valued. She was polite, hardworking, and always carried herself with a calm, almost graceful demeanor. To the casual observer, she was the kind of young woman parents held up as an example for their own children. At home, Claire's responsibilities only deepened that admiration. Her mother's failing health required constant care, and while most teenagers would have grown frustrated with the burden, Claire handled it as if it were second nature. She cooked, cleaned, and made sure her mother never missed a dose of her medication. Her father worked long hours, often absent from daily family life, and Claire filled the gaps with quiet determination. It wasn't unusual to see her escorting her mother to the clinic or running errands for her parents, always with a steady smile. Even at school, her reputation was untarnished. Teachers praised her academic achievements, classmates respected her quiet intelligence, and she managed to balance studies with extracurriculars in a way that seemed effortless. To the community, she was Ridgewood's pride, a living reminder that goodness still thrived in small towns. Her younger brother, Michael, often faded into the background by comparison. He was quieter, less noticed, and rarely praised the way his sister was. Still, he accepted it, because who could compete with perfection? Claire shone too brightly for anyone to question her, and in Ridgewood, nobody ever did. Michael Donnelly had grown used to living in his sister's shadow, but the longer he observed her, the more uneasy he became. Claire's life looked flawless to everyone else, yet he noticed the small details others ignored. She locked her bedroom door even during the day, carrying the key in her pocket at all times. She kept journals tucked away under her mattress, thick notebooks she never allowed anyone to touch. At night, when the house should have been silent, Michael sometimes woke to the sound of footsteps pacing softly across the wooden floors. He would peer through the crack of his bedroom door and catch sight of Claire moving from room to room, her face calm, but her eyes oddly distant, as if she were lost in thought or following some secret routine. At first, Michael brushed these things off. Maybe she was simply private, maybe she was restless, maybe she was just dealing with stress in her own way. But the unease grew when other strange incidents began to unfold around the house. Small amounts of money went missing from their father's wallet, yet Claire always had a reasonable explanation for why she needed cash. Valuable items, like their mother's watch and a silver necklace, were found broken or misplaced, though Claire's calm words always reassured their parents. She never panicked, never faltered, and never raised her voice. For everyone else in Ridgewood, Claire's composure was proof of her maturity. To Michael, it was something else entirely, too perfect, too practiced. He began to feel as though his sister was carefully performing a role for the world while hiding the truth from those closest to her. Nobody else seemed willing to see it, and that left him with a growing sense of dread he couldn't shake. The uneasiness that Michael carried began to grow heavier when trouble started reaching beyond their household. It was subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but soon it became impossible for him to ignore. A close friend of their father died suddenly after a supposed accident at home. The town grieved, and Claire was among the first to visit the family, offering comfort with a steady voice and sympathetic smile. To everyone else, her presence was reassuring. To Michael, it felt strangely rehearsed, as if she had been preparing for the moment long before it happened. Not long after, another neighbor collapsed unexpectedly while out walking. Doctors claimed it was a sudden health complication, but the incident gnawed at Michael. He remembered seeing Claire deliver a basket of food to that same neighbor just days earlier. Again, the town praised her for her kindness, while Michael quietly wondered if there was something darker behind her gestures. The pattern unsettled him. Each time someone around them suffered, Claire was close enough to be noticed, but never close enough to be suspected. She stood at funerals, comforting the grieving with words that sounded almost too polished. She looked into people's eyes with a steadiness that never cracked. It was as if she knew no one would ever think to connect her to misfortune. Michael tried convincing himself he was imagining things, that his suspicions came from jealousy or from living too long in her shadow. But then he noticed other details, the stains on her clothing that didn't look like food or dirt, the way she lingered near their mother's medicine cabinet, the strange notebooks filled with lists and symbols. Each discovery added weight to his fear. Something was happening around Claire, something no one else could see. The Donnelly home was ordinary in almost every way, except for one place, the basement. It was a space no one seemed to enter except Claire. She always kept the door locked, the small brass key never leaving her possession. When their parents asked about it, she brushed their questions aside with easy explanations. Old school projects, storage boxes, nothing worth looking at. To anyone else, that answer was enough. But to Michael, it only deepened his unease. He had lived in the same house his whole life, yet the basement had become a place of mystery, one that felt as though it belonged to his sister alone. One evening, curiosity got the better of him. When Claire left the house, Michael searched for a way in. He tried every spare key he could find, even a few tools from the shed, but the lock refused to open. Frustrated, he sat on the steps, staring at the heavy wooden door, wondering what she could be hiding. That night, he stayed awake, watching from the shadows of the hallway. He saw her slip quietly downstairs, her movements deliberate, her expression unreadable. Hours passed before she returned, and when she did, Michael noticed faint smudges on her hands, dark stains that looked almost like ash or dried chemicals. The secrecy of that basement began to haunt him. He imagined what might be behind the door, shelves of hidden objects, evidence of the strange patterns he had noticed, maybe even answers to the questions he was too afraid to ask. The lock, the stains, the late-night visits, all of it pointed to something far from ordinary. Michael's suspicion was no longer a vague feeling. It had become a certainty. Whatever Claire was doing down there, it wasn't innocent. Michael knew suspicion alone wasn't enough. If he told anyone in Ridgewood about Claire, they would dismiss him instantly. She was too perfect in their eyes, too admired. He needed something undeniable, something no one could ignore. That was when he remembered the old camcorder stored in his closet, a relic from years earlier when their father used to record family holidays. He set it up in the hallway one night, pointing it toward their mother's bedroom door. His plan was simple: let the camera watch when he couldn't. The first night passed quietly. When Michael replayed the tape, it showed nothing unusual, just the dark hallway, the flicker of shadows, the silence of a sleeping house. The second night was different. As he fast-forwarded through the recording, his heart froze. Claire appeared on the screen, moving slowly and deliberately toward their mother's room. She carried bottles in her hands, pausing only to glance back at the hallway before slipping inside. The footage revealed her sitting beside their mother's medication, carefully opening capsules and mixing them with a powder she poured from one of the bottles. Her face was calm, her movements practiced, as though this was not the first time she had done it. Later on the tape, Michael watched her creep down into the basement, unlocking the door and disappearing inside. The camera caught only a glimpse, but enough to see rows of containers and shelves before the door closed. Michael sat frozen, staring at the evidence. For weeks he had doubted his instincts, but now the truth stared back at him through the flickering screen. His sister, Ridgewood's perfect daughter, wasn't caring for their family. She was carefully, methodically harming them in ways no one had ever suspected. Michael kept the tape hidden for days, unsure what to do with it. Every time he thought about showing someone, fear stopped him. What if no one believed him? What if Claire found out he had recorded her? The weight of the secret gnawed at him, but the images on the screen were impossible to erase from his mind. He began watching her more closely, noticing how often she hovered near their mother's medicine cabinet, or how her father always seemed weaker after meals she prepared. Each detail only confirmed what he already knew. Claire's calm, perfect exterior was nothing more than a mask. The breaking point came when their father collapsed one evening at the dinner table. His face turned pale, his body trembling as Claire rushed to his side with a performance so convincing it fooled everyone else in the room. But Michael saw the faint flicker in her eyes, the absence of panic, as though she had been waiting for it to happen. Their mother's condition was also worsening rapidly, her strength slipping away despite the medication she took daily. Michael could no longer deny it. If he stayed silent, someone in his family was going to die. With trembling hands, he finally brought the tape to the authorities. At first, they were skeptical. Claire's reputation had even reached them, but once they watched the footage, the illusion shattered. Investigators searched her room and uncovered the hidden journals, filled with unsettling notes about control, experiments, and carefully detailed plans. Each page painted a picture of a mind consumed not by kindness, but by obsession. The perfect daughter of Ridgewood had been orchestrating slow destruction under the guise of care. Michael's decision to come forward had pulled the mask away, and now there was no going back. When the truth finally came to light, Ridgewood was shaken in a way it had never been before. The town that had once praised Claire Donnelly as its shining example now struggled to reconcile her image with the evidence laid out before them. Neighbors who had trusted her to babysit their children or run errands for the elderly were stunned into silence. Her calm smile, once a source of comfort, now seemed chilling in memory. The perfect daughter had been living a double life, and no one had seen it until it was far too late. In court, the video and the journal spoke louder than any testimony. The footage of Claire quietly tampering with her mother's medication sent waves of shock through the room, and the lists in her notebooks painted a disturbing picture of someone who had been planning and perfecting her methods for years. Experts described her actions as deliberate and methodical, driven by a need for control rather than any sudden burst of violence. For Ridgewood, the girl they thought they knew was gone forever, replaced by a figure they barely recognized. Michael, once overshadowed by his sister, became the reluctant hero of the story. Without his persistence and the courage to expose the truth, investigators agreed that more lives might have been lost. Yet the victory felt hollow. His family was broken, his parents weakened by the very person they had trusted most, and the home they once shared would never feel the same again. Claire Donnelly's downfall became a story people whispered about for years, a warning of how easily evil can hide in plain sight. The face everyone adored had concealed something monstrous, and it was her own brother who finally revealed it to the world.